everybody. This is Becca.
And this is Larissa.
Becca has a lot of interesting, most times wrong, takes about pop culture and TV shows. So we're just here to educate her.
Yeah. Well, no, Larissa has a lot of less interesting. Also, oftentimes
yours are wrong, but at least they're not boring. So,
your takes are a bit kind of boring. I don't feel like they align with what pop culture should believe, but you probably...
The culture. The beliefs as a culture.
Yeah, I think as a culture, we believe wrong things.
Yeah.
So...
Well, I guess that's what we're here to kind of break down is...
Yeah.
What you should believe and what you shouldn't believe about TV shows. Mostly media.
Yeah.
Characters. Themes.
Yeah, different things that happen in television.
Representation.
Two lazy girls who like to watch a lot of TV, trying to do something productive with it. I feel like is what this really is.
That's actually a really good synopsis.
And our opinions are 100% right. If you try to come at us for them, you're wrong, and you just shouldn't do that. I think that's pretty clear.
You'll be happy to know Becca brought notes. So
yeah, I brought a lot of notes.
So
this won't be all ad lib. If it were, it would be a terrible podcast, I think.
I'm gonna panic and ad lib.
To this episode,
yeah,
we're talking about Friends and New Girls. I think two of the most
new
iconic.
Girls.
Sorry,
Friends and Girls Who Are New.
Sorry, Friends and New Girl. I think two of the most like iconic sitcoms in the last
like very much. I think they're both
few decades at least.
Yeah, like very much the staple of the genre. Like, what we learned was like that it would be called
the buddy comedy. No, the buddy comedy genre.
Yeah,
that's what you're talking about.
Which is, I think, what we're here to talk about today. Like, we're here to talk about how they represented their generations respectively.
Yeah, and I think like how like they both sort of took the buddy comedy genre, or like I've heard it referenced as like the hangout comedy genre before, where it's, you know, like just friends hanging out basically.
Yeah,
I think like how it's sort of like has taken that genre and made it like its own and like changed it a little bit, influenced shows around it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it was popular for a reason. I think that's because it reflected a lot of what viewers were going through at that time. Like, a lot of, like, that young adult, post-college, like, marriage and parenthood phase.
Yeah. Well,
that's, like, pretty recent when you think of, like,
basically
all of humanity, like, Neanderthals.
Well, yeah, I would also
say... In the grand
say,
scheme of the 5 billion years.
Like, Friends is definitely... like one of the there were other sitcoms that were sort of hangout genre buddy comedy, but Friends is definitely one of the first ones and definitely one of the most popular ones that
I think so. Like, we talked a little bit about like Seinfeld and how that is a bit of a precursor for the genre, shortly before it. But like, I guess you could say the same about like a lot of the sitcoms, like Frasier, like Cheers, having those. Is it Cheers that the tagline's like a familiar face?
Cheers, the theme song is Where Everybody Knows Your Name.
Oh my god, that's like with the buddy genre.
Yeah, so it's sort of like a mix of the workplace hangout genre, I think, because
I guess
they all work at the bar, this bar that like this like ex-baseball player owns, but at the same time a lot of it does feel like sort of antics that just like friends would get up to a lot. Like, yeah. And there's just this whole will they, won't they of Sam and Diane, which is definitely
part of...
Like, I would say the initial, like, one of the earliest, because that's Cheers is 80s, 90s, I think. It's one of the initial, like, will they, won't they, like, enemies to lovers sort of arcs that I think definitely inspires, like, couples like Ross and Rachel and Nick and Jess.
Okay, yeah. Like, I feel like, to me, though, that's, like, the staple... Will they, won't they? Like, if you ask your grandpa about a will they, won't they probably won't know what that means, but they know Jack and Diane are...
Yeah. Sam and Diane are Cheers.
Yeah.
No,
so it's just...
And also, like, Sam and Diane were, in my opinion, a terrible couple. And maybe we're rambling a little bit too much about
Cheers. We're talking about other shows.
But we can, like, move on to...
New Girl. Okay, yeah, and this is another important, I think, part of the definition of a buddy comedy. You address the will they, won't they. I think that's like a really strong characteristic of the buddy comedy. I think also it's important to define that, like, it's very character oriented, so all the plot is driven by character and, like, character relationships or, like, wacky kind of, like, situations that they're put into, whereas other, like, hangout genre, like the workplace genre, or like the family sitcom genre, those are like, it's fueled by like the family or fueled by like the workplace, so there's like outside forces that come in to start the plot, whereas the like buddy hangout is usually fueled by the characters' motivations.
I think an important thing about the like hangout buddy comedy genre is like the characters are choosing to be together. They're not
okay. Yeah.
It's not like mandatorily that they're there. Because with family, you have family obligations, and like
which like makes that really harder to write for. I can imagine.
No, yeah, definitely.
Because you can't just force them into situations.
Like,
they have to have a reason for.
Well, which I think is why a lot of the like hangout comedy ones like have characters live together.
Okay.
Because they have to like be around each other all the time, like. Look, we spend a lot of time together, but I'm not going to be there the moment something big happens for you all the time. Like,
yeah.
So they definitely put characters together. I think with Friends, they break it up a little bit because they live across the hall from each other, but like Monica and Rachel have their apartment, and Joey and Chandler have their apartment, and then the others are just kind of always there for some reason. But with New Girl, they're all
there for you. They'll be there for you.
They'll be there for you.
24/7 in your apartment.
Yeah, like
they don't have keys.
And then with like New Girl, like 4 out of the 5 of the main characters just live in the apartment, and so that definitely. Well, I guess at some times.
Yeah.
At one point, I think 5 out of the 5, either coach or CC, depending. I think 6 people lived in the apartment at one point when Reagan moved in too. It was a whole thing.
Yeah, they have more rotation.
But so they have like just one apartment there. But I think, a big staple of it is like.
I imagine like the loft is like what the central perk is to.
Yeah, the front
is. But I think that's also important too. Is like one thing I think we're gonna talk about is how like generation they approach their period of life a bit differently. How like Friends are a lot more kind of excited to be adults, and they're striving to be adults when they're working for that, which is probably how they don't need to be in this like kind of dorm like living situation.
Yeah.
Like they don't need that to feel comfortable. Like they can make their own plans and come over and feel equally satisfied in their friendships. Whereas New Girl,
it plays into the like millennial, I don't want to grow up kind of thing. Like there were all those jokes when millennials were in their 20s, early 30s, being like, "Oh, millennials are so lazy. They still live at home." Blah blah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to be fair, they were young adults, and there's like finally a time where like you can be a young adult. But I think it definitely plays into like that.
Yeah, like they don't want to grow up. Like they're more trying to stick to being children, but like
they want to hold on to their youth a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think with Friends, it's like it wasn't necessarily as much of a thing to be in that in between.
I think
or at least it wasn't talked about.
They're always eager to be adults. Like they're always looking for kind of serious relationships, and they're most of them anyways. But like Rachel starts off by like she's leaving her marriage. Like Ross is divorced with a child on the way.
Monica, the whole show, just wants a partner and to have a family.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Chandler is the only one who I think is trying to escape adulthood a little bit because he's afraid of commitment, but also like can't break up with his very serious girlfriend Janice. So
yeah, he never like really like fucks around. But like all the New Girl characters fuck around.
Yeah,
all of them. Maybe not Winston. Winston's like
Winston just like the only reason he didn't fuck around is because he doesn't know how to.
He has no game.
It was like It was like very early on addressed that Winston has no game, and then because like in the first or second season, they talk about how the only reason he got girls before was because he played basketball professionally.
So you need.
And now that he doesn't, and he's just like he was a full-time nanny, I think at the point in time. Oh, yeah, everyone was like, yeah. Well, I would say one thing about the structure of the shows is that. What was I gonna say? No, I forgot. Oh, I was gonna say that Friends uses the like they're all in one place and all the jokes are very much like verbal. And then like in New Girl they do the whole like the knee-jerk humor kind of thing where they do like cutaways a lot of the time to like backgrounds. Like basically all of Winston's past as a basketball player progressively gets less and less impressive. Like when at one point there's an episode where they cut away to Winston who can't hold a basketball in his hand. Like, he just drops it. Or, like, the whole episode of Jess trying to figure out if she should take a new job is just cutaway joke scenes of, like, them doing.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, they're definitely wackier, which I think we wrote somewhere that it's... Yeah. Like, how Friends is... They take themselves a lot more seriously, I think, but the lives they live are a lot more fantastical.
Yeah, well, like, they live in, like, central New York.
Yeah.
And each of them has, like, very nice, spacious apartments. I would say they sort of explain away Monica and Rachel's by saying that Monica inherited it from her grandma, but, like, she still has to keep up with rent on that.
Yeah.
And, like, they don't really explain away, like, Joey, most of the time, can barely afford to, like, order pizza, as far as I can tell, because he doesn't work
Yeah,
ever.
but, like, they never
he pays his half of the rent.
Yeah. They don't talk about money the same way they do in New Girl. Like, they never worry as much about, like, their jobs unless it's, like, that's the plot of the episode.
The only episode I saw them talk about money was in season 2, when it's Ross's birthday.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's Joey, Phoebe, and Rachel, who are all, like, Rachel's works at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Phoebe is a, like, masseuse who works out of her home, basically.
She had, like, a taxi.
At one point,
but, like,
later on, and then Joey is, like, a struggling actor, and they're all like, we don't have money, and you keep taking us to expensive places, and there's always a reason, and they're, like, chipping in, and they're like, we don't want to, like, take away from the fact that something important's happened, but also we don't have that money. And it's like, how are you living in your apartment?
Yeah, like, yeah.
But I guess, like, you can't have, like, a shitty...
They definitely brush, like, they're, like, yeah, they definitely brush, like, money as under the rug, and then New Girl, it's very much kind of a part of the characters and part of...
Is a part of their whole plot line is that they have no money. Like, Jess is a teacher, but to be fair, I think teachers do not get paid well, or did not get paid well. I think...
Yeah, especially in the
States. But, yeah, and they all live in Los Angeles, and they want to live downtown Los Angeles, so they live in, like, a spacious loft, but, like, 4 to 6 of them live in that loft at any given time.
Canonically, they also, like, it's supposed to be a 3-bedroom loft, and they're squeezing a 4th person in.
Yes. And then Schmidt, like, I guess is the one who's got his life together a little bit. Like, he's got a nice job, but yeah.
Not okay. But
he's not okay in a lot of ways.
Person, but, like, financially
he's got together. Like, and it's also, like, I think consistently a joke that, like, when Jess loses her job, Nick's like, I'm not the poorest. I made rent and you didn't. Like, it's very much... They have to lean on each other for help sometimes.
And it's brought up a lot, and it's never really the point of the joke. It's just kind of, like, understood. It's like...
It's just like, yeah,
part of their character.
We don't have money. I have to live with roommate. Yeah. And they meet a lot of characters who are like, well, I live on my own in a nice house, and you live with 4 roommates, so do you want to hang out at my place?
Yeah.
Like, it's very much brought up that, like...
yeah.
Yeah, but I think they stay there a little longer than they have
to. I think,
to,
like, in Friends, it's just, like, the fantasy, and it's, like, whenever any of them are kind of looking for a job, like, 2 episodes later they have a job, or it's just to have, like, a fun little montage of, like, Rachel writing her resume. It's very, like, whimsical. It's like, oh, boy, I need a new job, and, like, like, I hope, like, this interview at, like, Ralph Lauren goes well, which is, like, no, you have no experience. It shouldn't.
No, and, like, I think moving on from that, also, Friends has a lot more, like, episode to episode kind of, like, whatever happened in the last episode doesn't necessarily have to affect the next episode stuff. Not always. Like, I think they do have overarching plot lines, which is what makes it different from a show like Seinfeld, which doesn't have as much of that. But, like, Friends is a lot more like, oh, you did something bad in the last episode, don't worry, we will forget about it by the next episode. And I think New Girl tries to do more of a, like, what happened last episode will probably affect the next episode, depending on, like, the storyline, but...
Like, there's changes that are made to characters that stick a lot more frequently. I would say Friends, the most serialization, like, whatever serialization it is usually to do with, like, the romantic relationships.
Yeah.
It's usually just, you know, whoever's dating who or, like, whatever problems they're having.
Mm-hmm.
And there is character growth, but I think New Girl does have a little bit more character growth than Friends.
And I think, like, I've heard this in other, like, things about New Girl, is that, like, a lot of it is just, like, the creator's desire to, like, tell a story from her own personal, like her own personal enjoyment and, like, what she finds funny, but also, like, that, like, level of sincerity that is needed. Like I think like a lot of
like the serious moments are serious.
Yeah, it's sort of more of a like Friends definitely tries to keep it light. I think more than New Girl does, but I also think that I guess Friends was groundbreaking in the sense that it did more serious moments than other sitcoms would.
That's true.
And now it's more of a
maybe it's like is it taken away because they have like the laugh track and like the like they have a sad moment like ah like that's just
yeah.
You know what I mean? And it can't like sit with you.
I think the laugh track is something that like also like I guess it was a thing I assumed because there were live audiences and so that's why they had laugh tracks is like because it's like when the live audience is laughing and stuff like that. It's what I thought it was. I don't know if that's accurate, but
no, I think that's right.
But yeah, so like I think like I guess it was more of a staple of that time, and I think now like you can make a sitcom without it being like in front of a live audience, and it can be like what it was. Like I think also I heard a lot of New Girl scenes are like they do a lot of different takes of like the actors just sort of improving to see if a joke works better this way or that way. Like a lot of the Schmidt falling more and more in love with Nick jokes, I think I was hearing in an interview were like very improv.
Okay.
Like they sort of were like, what if you went even harder on this? Like, what if you really went into detail about how you're in love with this character?
Like, New Girl really leans into everything. Like, it really is kind of a caricature. But yeah, it's so much zanier and so much more of a caricature of the sitcom, and it's like more serious.
Yeah, and I think you have mentioned this before, where like for New Girl, you're definitely able to get more like audience feedback in terms of what's working and what's not working.
Yeah.
And in Friends, it's like it was less of a thing. So I think definitely
social media.
Yeah, because social media, as you call it.
Yeah, that's I think a fair point. Like Friends can, but not to the same like nuance that. Like, you know, it's just whatever TV critics were saying.
It's like they kind of would get feedback.
They did read the paper.
Like they could get feedback, I would say, at the end of the season and during the off season. But less so. Like they couldn't do the immediate stuff that I think New Girl can, and I think that's why New Girl.
There's a lot of shifts that happen in New Girl.
Yeah, like I think New Girl learned to lean into some of the aspects of the show more, probably because fans responded to it more.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the tropes?
The first trope we wanted to talk about was found family tropes.
Yeah. I think is what the buddy comedy.
Yeah, a staple of the buddy comedy. Yeah. It's just that found family idea.
I don't know if we could like work without it. Yeah, and just we kind of want to talk about how kind of like it's maybe not as cute as like it's cute, but like there's definitely some issues with it.
I think I have a problem with this use of the word family.
Yeah, when they also sleep with each other.
They also sleep with each other. Like, I guess that's why Princess was invented as a word.
This is your friend group. And that should be a healthy boundary that everyone draws.
I also think that, like, I definitely have friends who I'm closer with than my family. Like,
oh, yeah.
I don't think that it has to be this thing that family is closer than friends. I think it's just that you're choosing to be with your friends, so you...
I think it's just they're not really like they're very separate.
Yeah,
and they should be separate aspects.
But yeah, I think in that thing we talked about the clickiness of each group within the like groups in general, and the found family trope is like they're like the friends especially are like an impenetrable clique. Like they are 6 friends who do not.
They rarely
warmly welcome
anyone else. Yeah, like they really. New Girl really addresses that more. Like Jess has her outside friends.
Jess has
so do like Schmidt and Nick. They have like that like douchey guy they're friends with for a bit. Anyways, they have outside lives.
Winston is like basically friends with most of his cops that he like when he eventually becomes that sort of part of his life.
Yeah, so he just dates one.
Well, and also
so
though,
like
Jess, like a lot of Jess's love interests are outside of the show, and on that, like, she dates a lot of people, and they all sort of are like, oh, we actually do like this person, and like they want to know.
They're a little more accepting. Yeah, I think a lot of time what happens, especially like I think it's probably part of like your perception as well, is like when you're getting used to this. When you love hanging out with this friend group, and there's like this friend group, you kind of are a part of this clique. So then when someone else comes in, you're like immediately uncomfortable. Like, this is also a stranger to you.
But
so for that reason, I think like a lot of like when they bring in like when they bring in like side characters, they don't deserve to get as much hate as they do from the friend group. Like Rachel was sleeping with this like Puerto Rican guy named Pablo.
Oh yeah.
Like
Ross was just
and they just like shit on him all the time, and it's like, talk to him. Like they have one like they're just not real people because they're not part of the friend group. Like, they're outsiders.
The most accepted ones in the friend group were either Phoebe's love interest because Phoebe wasn't going to date anyone in the friend group, or like I guess Richard a little bit when Monica dated him for a while, but even like he was too old to want to hang out with them.
But they have to become kind of like the long-term love interests, I think, have to become a bit integrated into the friend group as well. They can't kind of exist on the side. Like her, like Monica's, what's his name?
Richard.
Yeah. He has to have like episodes where he hangs out with like Joey and Chandler.
he has an established previous relationship with Monica and
he's friends
Ross
with his
from being their family doctor when they were kids, which is also kind of fucked up. But
we'll talk about that.
I would say that New Girl does do a good job of making it not feel weird that like they're outsiders. Like I was almost immediately accepting of Robbie as a character and Dr. Sam as a character, which I know is controversial because I think a lot of people don't like Dr. Sam.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I think he's
he's a good character. I think especially when they get back together.
Yeah, well, I think he's a fun,
I don't know, he's supposed to be a fuckboy, and that's how I perceived him to be, like,
Well, he very much propels Jess into realizing her feelings for Nick, I think. Nick
both times.
But, like, he's definitely, he's a super fun character to, like, have, like, he fits into that friend group because he is kind of frat bro-ish, which I think they
he
are.
can, like,
and, like,
vibe with them.
Robbie is also, like, a character where it's, like, you wanted him to keep coming back. Like, he was just so nice, and they never... Or he says it in an episode, you guys ask me shockingly little about my personal life, and it allows for such an interesting, like, background for him. Like, to be just, like, told, like he's just independently very wealthy, and, like, he has, like, a boat, and, like, all these things. Like, I think, like, they do a good job, and then, Allie gets introduced as, like, Winston's love interest, like, but they definitely make side characters feel more welcome. Like, even from the get-go.
They're less, like, maybe it's because they don't have as much of, like, this clickiness. Like, they usually have, like, Jess is, like, friendly, her gynecologist friend that would come up. Like, you're more used to it, so, like, when new people come in, you're like, well, you can say that.
And right from the get-go, Jess's first love interest after Spencer is, what's his name? I remember they called him Genslinger. Justin Long's character, though. Who he did a great job. That was good. But like right from the get-go, like Winston, he wins Winston and Schmidt over just by being nice to them, and they're like, "Yeah, we love this kid."
Yeah,
and like,
and then is it just Nick that doesn't
like him? I think Nick's kind of a dick to him.
Just because he's into Jess, though.
I think partly because he's into Jess, and partly because I'm not surprised. Like Nick doesn't usually vibe with a lot of Jess's boyfriends. I think because of their relationship, but also because I don't think he loves the personalities that, like, she would go for.
Like, I think Justin Long brings out her annoying side. Like, he's very quirky.
Yeah, like, he brings out that side of her.
He has, like, the ukulele.
And I don't think... And then Nick initially is very resistant to all of her quirkiness. Like, he doesn't
As
like
we all
that.
should be.
Okay, well, I quite like it. But, no, so I definitely think that they do a good job at... showing that, like, if the outside character is perfectly nice, they don't deserve to be shit on.
Well, and New Girls, they bring it up, like in, like, the later seasons, they kind of address, like, this is getting really weird that we're still living, like, we're just the five of us. I'm living with my ex-boyfriend, Jess is living with Nick still at the time, and, like, everyone's, like, everyone who's gonna date everyone has dated everyone, and, like, it's a weird situation for them internally if you're an outsider looking at it. I think that was nice to give a little bit back to the outsider. Whereas Friends is just like every side character, especially in the early seasons, is just shit on like immediately. Like there's Pablo, there's Janice, everyone hates her. There's Ross's ex-wife.
Did not deserve to be dated.
She's like her new girlfriend is like just a bitch.
Well,
or, I think regarded as a bitch.
Well, they always call her a bitch, but I think that's more Ross's toxic masculinity.
Oh, for sure.
And that like he's threatened by her. Like also, you're threatened by the woman that your wife left you for.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, you didn't.
What more could she do to you?
You didn't turn her lesbian. She's not gonna like.
That's the entire thing. I can't compete with that. He's.
I think there's an episode later on where he gets worried that his Emily is hanging out with Susan because he thinks Susan's gonna turn Emily lesbian, and it's like, that's
He's
not
like,
how,
I think I
that's
like
not
that.
how lesbianism works.
I watched like a video saying where it's like Ross was actually just like deeply traumatized by his wife leaving him for a woman, and like had internalized so much like shit, and it just resonates through everything.
Well, I think Ross's big problem is that he isn't able to, like work through his issues. Should we move on to romantic tropes?
Yeah.
Okay. So unenthusiastic.
Yes. We're talking about the will they won't they.
Yeah.
Will they won't they.
Well, I think that Ross and Rachel are the big will they won't they of friends, but I think that New Girl does two will they won't they relationships.
Yes.
Like right off the bat,
you're right.
There's a will they won't they with Cece and Schmidt. Well, I guess not right off the bat. It takes a couple episodes to like see that that's going to be a thing. But
yeah, which is like a fun. I think it was fun when I remember watching them for the first time, and they actually hooked up. I was like, obviously,
ooh. Nick and Jess are the main will they won't they of the show, who kind of, I guess, follow the Ross and Rachel thing where they get together and break up.
I don't think this is going to be contested. New Girl does the will they won't they with Jess and Nick a lot better than they do.
So
just a little bit better than they do with Ross and Rachel.
Well, because
the thing with Ross and Rachel, and I don't like will they won't, it's like, okay, they don't work. You broke them up. Good job. I learned a lot about these characters and why the relationship is doomed to fail. Don't put them back together. Like, what? Like, what did they...
And I think that Ross and Rachel could have been a relationship that... They could have done the will they won't they better. I believe that. But I believe that the reason why Nick and Jess is that they grow into a relationship that's healthier for themselves. Whereas Ross and Rachel, like, Rachel's the only one who grows up in that relationship, and she's not the one who needed to.
Like, she only got more out of his league.
Yeah. And Ross never grows up, so...
It seems like for Friends, it seems like they just had no... It seems for, like, New Girl, it was very intentional. They were going to grow these characters to make them work and make, like, the timing make sense. You knew that they were going to end up together, I think, by the end of the show.
I think you kind of always... Like, even by episode 3, you could see there was sparks flying between
they had
Nick
to, like,
and Jess.
separate them? They had to, like...
Yeah, they had to, like, tell them
apart in
to, like, do less. And I think they did often put them in different plot lines because they're like, I mean, soon enough, we're going to have to put them in. Like, there's just going to be no other option.
Yeah, they're too fucking sexy.
And, like, the way they got together in season 2 was, like, multiple episodes of them showing how immature they are.
Oh yeah.
Throughout, when they, like, first kiss, and then, like, everything that happens with, like, Sam and stuff like that.
On Sam.
Well, yeah, kind of, yeah. But,
is it really cheating if it's your one true love and you're supposed to be with them?
I think it is still cheating, but I would argue that Nick instigated the cheating. For sure. But,
like, he kissed her, but she didn't stop it.
She didn't stop it. She definitely wanted it to happen. I think it was really clear.
Yeah, they were both incredibly immature. But what an incredibly immature thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, how are you so in love with someone else while dating someone?
Well,
like,
I think
that just seems like, okay, come on, like, tip the lights down a little bit. You gotta
could potentially part of it be that Jess didn't want to be with someone like Nick.
Oh, that was part of it. But
yeah.
I just think, I don't know. It just seems so shitty to do.
Oh,
and I know he kind of didn't treat her well at the start, but I don't know. He was always honest.
I think Sam also, though, once he, like, I think that they addressed that she treats him shittily in the later seasons when they get back together.
Okay.
Like, they kind of address that. I think it's season 5. She and Sam get back together for a bit, and he addresses that, like, she made him sort of feel comfortable and, like, confident in opening up in a relationship, and then she cheated on him, and it broke his heart, and, like, straight up he, like, claimed, like, kind of ruined his life a little bit.
Right.
And he's he became, like, a whole different person, and then, like, they got back together, and then I think she makes up for it when she ultimately tries to sacrifice their relationship because she thinks that Sam and Diane, which call back to Cheers. Like, when Diane comes back to town and is like, I'm in love with Sam, and she's like, and she's like, I am in love with him, and whatever, and Jess is like, I honestly think they need to explore this, like, and I think it definitely mirrors, like, you see it from the main group's perspective of like how that friends to lovers, which is our other trope that they do.
Oh yeah, I think I watched another essay about this, and I can't say it because I don't remember which one it was, but it was like that like Jess seeing Sam and Diane together and like making that sacrifice was kind of her finally being able to put herself in Sam's shoes and see why he was getting jealous of like, oh, okay,
actually,
yeah, which I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think and it's sort of even said like she may not have realized that she was in that position, but like
because like that, I think that's just like kind of a shitty. Like, I think that having a complicated friendship, like, a friendship, quote-unquote, like that, right, they're literally exes, first of all. Like, you gotta acknowledge that's gonna be, like, however normal you think that is.
Well, they acknowledge throughout the show, like, Jess's whole thing in season 4 is that she can't, like, get a guy to date her long-term because she lives with ex. Which is,
I think that's really understandable.
Really and they do talk about it. They're like...
But and then they're just in love the whole time, though. Like, it'd be different if they weren't.
I think that Nick moves on a little bit more than Jess does.
Is he dating? Yeah.
He has this whole thing with Reagan.
Yeah.
They live together. I would call that barely serious.
I thought his relationship with Reagan helped him grow up way more than his friendship with Jess ever did. Like, he did a huge character arc when he moved to New Orleans. Like,
but I might argue that in part that was due to what happened with Jess, is he didn't want to screw up again.
Okay.
Like, I think both of them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, I don't think it was his friendship with Jess necessarily, but it was his past failure with Jess, who was someone who he was deeply in love with at the time. Like, he's like, I don't want to let that sort of ruin a relationship again. And the big problem with Nick and Reagan ended up being that they were too similar, which I think works because I think Nick does need someone who's less Nick-like. I think he needs someone who's more emotional because he doesn't want... I think he wants the emotional intimacy, but he doesn't want to instigate any of it.
I think being friends with Nick and Jess, like being in that friend group, would be so goddamn annoying.
We would just be shit-talking them,
right? I mean, like, why the fuck? Like, why are they get together fucking all the time? Like, yeah, just do it. Like,
just date.
Stop.
If you want to date, just date.
Why do you have a boyfriend? You're obviously in love with this person. Stop. Stop flirting. Stop going out of your way to like spend time with them. And like, I don't know. I just think it's like kind of a.
Yeah, I think
they need to take a little bit more responsibility and need to be a little bit more self-aware. Like, I don't care if you think it looks normal from the outside, and you can tell me when you're just friends with, but if you know that you have feelings for this person, then, like, shouldn't you be doing the healthy thing for yourself? And
which I do think that Jess does it way later, but I think she does eventually realize that she can't be around Nick, and that's when she leaves, and that sort of propels a whole thing. A big thing there is that Jess is like realizes in the Calicon 6 episode that she's do I know season 6 or do I know season 6? She realizes that she's facilitating like a lot of Nick and Reagan's relationship. Yeah. And she's like, and it's breaking her heart. She's very clear about that. So she's like, okay, I need to remove myself from this situation for a while.
Girl doesn't need to insert herself so much into her friends' relationships. I think that's like one of her worst
I think it's like her good quality until it's her bad quality kind of thing. Like, I think when it it can be used really positively.
It's nice when you want to build a friendship with someone.
But I think she goes so far.
It's hard to be responsible for your own shit. Why do you want to be responsible?
Well, I do think that she's one of those people who, like, she would be annoyingly involved in everyone's life. But I would say that, like, she does do the healthy thing when she finally comes to the conclusion, which takes her forever, which is that she does finally remove herself from the situation and she goes home. Yeah. And then, like, she realizes, like, when she comes back and wants to tell Nick how she feels, she thinks he doesn't feel the same way, and she's like, okay, I should just leave. I just can't deal with it. Like, and I think that's kind of immature, but I do think, like, if it's the best thing for her, then it's fine.
What she should have done.
She should have done it a long time ago.
But, okay, so, they adjust that. But I think, for a chunk of it, I find it, that's what the Will They Won't They's, I think, can be fun in small doses. I think they get really frustrating really quickly.
I will say that I chalk up a lot of the Will They Won't They stuff, like, to the TV show not wanting to put the characters together quite yet, like, wanting to drag it out. Because I do think that in a normal friend group, they'd have at least, like, slept together a few times in between. But like in TV shows, to keep it interesting, they can't get together yet. Like at least with Ross and Rachel, like while they aren't together, they hook up a few times, and Rachel even admits at one point, like, it's never really off the table for them to be together in the show. Like, she does address that at some point.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, they do sort of say, like there is a clear, like, dynamic between them that it's not friendship.
Watching the show, I never thought, like, it wasn't clear to me that they would be together at the end. I thought they easily could have...
Oh, Ross and Rachel?
Yeah, I thought that wasn't as set in stone as Nick and Jess ever were.
So, I mean, I guess I watched the show, like, when everyone knew Ross and Rachel were going to get together, and, like, it was a big thing that Ross and Rachel were this huge couple, but I watched the show and I remember being like, why? Why does everyone love Ross and Rachel? Because
it's bad. So frustrating to watch. All he does is make her life miserable. She's miserable with him.
Well, should we move on to our character deep dive of the two relationships was actually Ross and Rachel, Schmidt and Cece.
Okay, yeah.
Because, like, first of all, Ross and Schmidt, I think, play the same role in the friend group to start off. They're both the characters that have their lives together.
Yeah.
They're more established. They're both, I would say, in season 1, are kind of toxically masculine. Like, Schmidt definitely plays into the I need to be a man and, like, has his, like, douchey friends.
Yeah, it really crosses that line to being, like, douchey. Versus, like, later seasons, it's more like, oh, you're very secure in your...
Yeah, like, Schmidt is this... Well, they're both these really insecure guys who are, like, really obsessed with being, like, well-established men.
And I think they're, like, they both probably think that the show is about them.
Yeah.
But I think they both think they're main characters. Definitely. But I think New Girl is aware that Schmidt acts like that, whereas I don't think Friends was aware of how, like, fucking terrible Ross came on.
And something that Friends doesn't do well is that when Ross acts out in an overly masculine way, his friends don't, like, address it. They just sort of say, like, they just sort of shit on him for doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, when Schmidt tries to act overly masculine, they say, yo, Schmidt, you know you don't have to do that, right? Like, just be who you are. And they're much more supportive of him as a person. Like, I think Schmidt gets a lot of, like, validation in their relationship. Or, like, there's an episode earlier in the seasons where Schmidt brings Nick a cookie, and Nick is, like, really... There's a big thing, you got me cookie, got your cookie thing. But, like, it's a huge thing where, like, even Winston notices it and is like, Nick, no, you're the one being sort of bad in this situation. Like, Schmidt is a thoughtful, kind person by that time, because his friends have sort of supported him out of being the douchey masculine character and more into being, I think, he's a more feminine guy, but it's fine. Like,
well, you can see him as well, like, when he acts differently with, like, Nick and Jess and Winston than he does with, like, his douchey friends. Like, with them, you see kind of behind the scenes of him being like, do you think, like, this, like, hair moves makes it look, like, effortless enough? Does it make it look, like, masculine enough? Like, am I gonna
I think
appear macho to these guys? And then when he gets there, he, like, drops his voice a couple octaves. Like, he tries to, like...
Well, in the first couple seasons, he definitely does more of the, like, he puts so much effort in to be around those friends, and then, thank God, those friends kind of teeter off.
Yeah, they were there for, like, 2 episodes, so that's enough.
I think Schmidt, like, grew up, and Ross didn't, and I think that's when their character arcs diverged.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Schmidt, like, actually...
Well, you said it very well, saying, like, Ross never thought he needed to grow.
Yeah, well, I think that's a big thing of the Ross, Rachel, Schmidt, Cece, which I think is a really similar relationship in a lot of ways, because they both technically cheat on their significant others. But, like, what Schmidt does is arguably so much worse than what Ross does to start with.
On paper, it's a lot worse.
But you forgive Schmidt, and you don't forgive Ross. Like, well, I mean, maybe you forgive Ross, but...
Why is it ever... Yeah. I don't understand... Ugh.
Well, I think both the relationships start off as the guy being obsessed with the pretty girl.
Yes.
And Cece and Rachel kind of get put in this box of, like, they're beautiful, they don't have anything else. But I think when they get together, like, Ross wants to hold on to that relationship for dear life, and Schmidt's too insecure to, I think, try at first.
Yeah.
Because Schmidt breaks up with Cece because he says, I can't make you happy.
Well, I think he self-sabotages that. Like,
And Ross is like, no, this is how you should act in a relationship. And he...
acts like a douche.
Acts like a douche. But, yeah, no, with Ross's thing, it's like whether or not they were on a break, whether or not sleeping with that other girl was okay, he should have recognized that he hurt someone who he claimed to love.
He objectifies Rachel so much. Like, she's not a real person to him. He's like, well, no, like, we were technically, like, who cares? Technically, like, she's...
It's like, I don't care
like,
if you were technically not in the wrong, you should apologize for hurting my feelings kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, also, he
broke her heart. He was, like, I don't know.
Like, Rachel was very open about how much it hurt her, and Rachel had been trying to set clear boundaries with Ross.
Yeah, this was after, like, months of him being, like possessive and controlling.
Well, because he doesn't respect her career either.
Yeah.
He's very clear about how he's smart and she's this ditzy pretty girl, and that's all he like wants of her. Which I think
she's so clear. She's like, he's just the work friend. Like, I need to work late tonight. Don't come to my office. Comes to like.
Well, she's like, I need to work late tonight. I'm so sorry. I'll miss our anniversary. Blah blah blah. And like, she's trying to establish these boundaries of her, like, in a new working environment that like she's not used to yet. Because
do you imagine starting a new job and your fucking psycho boyfriend? She's not gonna try to set up like a picnic. For you.
Yeah,
like, to your like new boss of like 2 months, I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Well, like, and all of her, like, he was getting the encouragement because all of the women in her office were saying how sweet, he's such a great boyfriend, but like she was like, no, I've told him I don't want this.
Yeah.
That I need to work.
Blah blah blah. The boundary of it's only romantic if you're into it. She really stated she wouldn't be into it. So
well, but like, yeah, Ross, I think his lack of respect, I think he kind of is similar to Rachel's dad and Rachel's ex in a lot of ways, where Rachel's this character who's finally growing up and learning how to be like financially stable on her own, and Ross is like, no, I'll just take care of you, I'm smart and I'm well off, and then you can be my pretty wife, basically, is how he wants her. And I think that's how a lot of people have seen her in her life.
Yeah, and I think there's a reason why in season 1 and 2 she was into him before she kind of had that,
before she realized like what she wanted.
Yeah, she's that self-realization. But and then you're right, Ross never grew up.
Well, yeah,
what even I was like seasons later when they were gonna get back together, she was like, if you could just apologize for sleeping with that girl after our break, and he no.
Well, what I would say about that is, I do think Rachel was a little unreasonable to say that everything that happened between us when we broke up was all your fault, because that's kind of what it said. But at the same time, I think that Ross needed to be able to own up to the parts of it that were his fault. Like, if he had said, I shouldn't have slept with her and I'm really sorry that I hurt you, I think Rachel could have forgiven him.
Also, like, how much you care? Like, I don't know. Just say sorry. Just take it. Like, I don't know. Like,
he's toxically stubborn. Like, he can't admit when he's wrong.
He cares more about being right than.
I think I watched a video essay, which I also can't say, but that sort of said that Ross can't admit to his wrongdoing because he can't see himself as a person who would ever cheat. He's like, I'm not the cheater. I'm not the person who hurts. I'm the one who gets hurt.
He doesn't want to label himself as a cheater.
Like, he can't see himself as the bad guy because he's always the victim in his eyes.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, and going back to like Schmidt and Cece's relationship, I think a big part of why their relationship feels earned is because of the fact that Schmidt multiple times screws up with Cece and works really hard to make it up to her and apologizes.
Yeah.
And like openly admits in his proposal to her that he genuinely never thought he'd get another chance with her because of how much he had screwed up. Yeah. Which I think is a really honest and sweet moment, and also very telling of the fact that they have a beautiful friendship, which is a foundation for this relationship. Like, even when they break up the first time, she's like, I kind of just miss being your friend, Schmidt. Like, I want to have you as a friend.
Which I think we were talking about, like, how Jess and Nick have, like, a weird friendship when they're not together. I think Cece and Schmidt's are a good example of it not being
like, it's not like, weird when they're not together.
I think, like, to have maybe it's that, like, if people believe that they're going to get back together, it's never going to come across as just a friendship.
Yeah.
Well, which is never going to come across.
I think that healthy. I always believed Schmidt and Cece were going to get back together.
Okay.
But I would also say that they had those boundaries that Nick and Jess didn't in their friendships. Like, that's Cece true. Literally, when she realized she had feelings for Schmidt and, like, couldn't do it anymore, she removed herself from the situation. She was like, I'm going to go on a journey to self-discovery, basically, to be like, I need to figure out me and myself, and Schmidt seems really happy with Fawn, who, like, There were a lot of issues, but like that relationship was pretty funny
just
too.
Like abusive relationship.
It was just such it was a fucked up relationship, but like he kind of like
she like made him like shave a certain way and like
yeah. Well, like I think he was like kind of like into it though. You know what I mean? Like I think he really liked her. He definitely likes women in charge.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. But I would say like she removed herself from the situation and was like, Schmidt's really in love with her. Why would I try to screw that up?
Yeah.
Which I think is an important thing to note versus like Ross would like actively try to ruin relationships Rachel was in while he was with other people.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Like he
so
was like,
fucked up. He's so crazy.
Yeah.
Like poor Rachel. Oh my god. I would get so frustrated just watching her try to like talk to this man.
Hey. Okay. Move on to Phoebe and Jess.
The main couples. Yeah.
Yeah. Weirdly, Schmidt and Cece are a main couple more than Jess and Nick.
Bro, I think they
in
are
a lot of ways.
They're a lot more nuanced.
Well, I think they're a couple who is like more what's it called? Like they're like a more stable couple.
I like more stable couples in my shows.
Well, and like I think we sort of skipped over it earlier, but like Monica and Chandler, the reason why I love them as a couple is that they get together and they're just together and you see them work through things as a couple. And it's like it's clearly a very strong and beautiful relationship that again has that friendship foundation.
Yeah.
And it's like I enjoy watching it. Like I've watched shows like shows like
you enjoy watching them go through struggles together.
Yeah.
And like
okay. Phoebe versus Jess.
Yeah,
as characters.
Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
They both are.
That everyone hates. They used to love. That's what New Girl started.
New Girl is the epitome of
it was fresh off the heels
height of that trope.
500 Days of Summer? Seconds of
Summer?
5 Seconds of Summer?
500, I think it's 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah, 500 Days of Summer.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, we should watch it.
Well, because Zooey Deschanel is what everyone in Hollywood and like out of Hollywood and stuff was always deeming the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, which was very, rude to her as a person because it was like, oh, that's like all you nice are. Person? I think she is a bit Jess.
Yeah, I think
she's that quirky, like
is she.
I think she's probably nice enough. Like Hollywood standards are different.
Yeah, that's true.
She's probably nice enough, but like,
sus.
I would say that like she's a person who like I might not want to hang out with on the reg. That doesn't mean I think she's a bad person.
I feel like anyone that's like a TV show character would probably be unbearable to hang out with.
Maybe I could hang out with Winston.
Bro, is it? Yeah, I feel like if you hung out with Winston in real life, you'd be like, why is this man on so much coke? Like, why are you so fucking energetic all the time?
Why do I feel like I would get jealous of like how weird he is?
And like I just think
I'd be like, excuse me.
If I had to hang out with like Cece in real life, I'd be like, why are you so hot all the time? I feel to like shit about myself. Why do you never have to like go back? So we were going to talk about how they both kind of perform. And like Winston to some extent as well, but I feel like it doesn't work as well when compared to like a male. So it's like, I feel like it's not treated the same way.
Well, we said they're both the quirky girl of the group to start.
Yes. I said they're both very much like the heart.
Yeah.
Like they're the ones that will like remind everyone of like morals. They're like, no, like this is the right thing to do. Like they kind of tie people together that way.
Yeah, and I think they both do a lot of sort of funny, cutesy things.
Yeah, I think they're also both very sweet. Like no one wants to like hurt their feelings. Yes, they're very much like definitely. Really liked by the friend group.
I think though in part, like I think they differ because Jess is the more sincere, naive one, and Phoebe is a bit tougher at times, scary. Straight up, I think sometimes scary.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Which I respect. I love it.
Yeah,
she's got a dark side.
I think like they both have like their quirkiness in different ways. Like I think Phoebe's comes from like a very like jaded I can't care about this enough. Like I've gone through so much shit in my life that like I'm not gonna give a fuck about this. And she's kind of like a hippie. Like
basically had to fend for herself since she was 14. Like very tragic backstory. Impressive that she is the way she is. Kind of like like sweet. Like she's not even overly sweet. It's just you still would describe her a little bit that way as like the cute, like the quirky, cute, nice friend. But like she's She's very opinionated. I think they're both good at doing the quirky but also confident and opinionated line. Like neither of them.
Yeah, they do like the contrast.
They don't let people walk all over them, which I think is really interesting.
Sweet and like zany, but don't fucking cross me.
Yeah. Well, like Phoebe makes it clear most of the time when like any of them try to like go over the line, she'll put them in place. And Jess, I think it shows the best when there's the episode Jess and Julia where Nick dates the lawyer.
Yeah.
I can just name the episode titles now. I think that's...
Is that the title?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's called Jess and Julia. Or something
like
that. Something like that, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. No, where she's like, I'm a girly girl, that's fine.
Where, the lawyer is like,
fine.
oh, like, some people might buy into your act. And Jess is like, this isn't an act. This is who I am. Like, fuck you for thinking otherwise, basically. And I think her and Phoebe both do that very well.
Yeah, like, they don't, that's not what
they're not pretending. Them. Like, they just are that way. And they are happy about it.
And I think maybe, like, part of the different, like, Jess is a bit more naive. And it's obviously she hasn't got the, like, she's been, like, she has, of the friend group, I think, like, the healthiest parents. Like, almost, doting and, like, over. So she comes from, like, a very, like, sheltered life.
And
especially in comparison to Phoebe's.
Well, she says that at one point. Just something happens to her. I can't remember what it is. She gets fired or goes through a bad breakup or something. She says, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I've led a very sheltered life. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, she has.
You have, but she recognized it. And yeah, Phoebe comes from this, like, very hard past. And, like, she doesn't have the same family ties or relationships that arguably any of her friends have. Like, even Chandler, who doesn't really like his family very much, like, still has probably a better relationship with his parents and stuff than Phoebe can have with hers. But yeah, Phoebe, I think, what is that? What was I going to say? I sort of wrote this down, and maybe this is wrong, that I think Phoebe might be a little bit zany as a coping mechanism for her past. Like, I think that she uses sort of the funny, quirky stuff that she does to cope with the difficult life she's had. And I don't know if the show necessarily...
Like, I think if she didn't have that side of her personality, she would be incredibly, like, depressing as a character. Like, she would just be really hard as nails. So she kind of has to be...
Yeah, and I don't think the show necessarily... meant to do that. I don't know if they did.
No, it seems like they kind of make up shit about her backstory whenever they make some random things.
A plot device.
And it does get kind of it is kind of addressed as like a joke for most of the part until like later seasons when she's having like character arcs. I also think this was interesting too is that Jess like someone I think whenever Jess is in a position where she should be probably sexualized. Not like I don't know if it's like always negative term to say sexualized, but like where she needs to be presented as like a sex object or like she's someone's love interest or whatever. It's always very like they address how awkward she feels about it kind of thing. Like especially in the earlier seasons.
Well, and I think you said that both Jess and Cece are two characters who are never really sexualized. Like they're always sort of like even remember when Phoebe had to do the thing where she's supposed to like what's it called? Seduce Chandler, and like the way she does it, like it's all so weird and it's very overly comedic.
Yeah, I think she does. She's very much like a comedy though, like, and like the thing with Phoebe is that she's kind of I think it's probably part of the times that she's the zany girl, she's the hippie girl, but she's never like really a love interest. Like she's never an option really for any of the men in the friend group to sleep with.
Phoebe and Jess are very non-sexual characters.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they...
Like, even compared to Cece, like, she's like the model, she's like... Not that she's like presented that way in the show, but like...
When they talk about Jess's sexual interest, it's like period piece.
Yeah,
like,
it's very needy.
Like, stuff like that. And she's like kind of disgusted by like porn in a lot of ways.
I think Phoebe, when they do put her in like situations where she needs to be like, I think she is very confident. Like, I think Phoebe is a lot more confident than
I think
Jess.
Phoebe is confident in like herself as a sexual being, but the thing that I think they do is they make it overly comedic when she's being sexy. And to Phoebe, she's like, no, this is
like
hot.
They could just play different music under it, and it would probably come across.
Yeah, well, like to Phoebe, she thinks it's like super hot, like she's confident in it, which I do think is just hot in and of itself. But like they will make the scene so that like the character is doing something really weird, something that's not necessarily.
Yeah, she always has, I think, like the zanier love interest than the others. Maybe like not Chandler, but
what is like her Phoebe's most normal love interest is probably the one she marries, right, Mike?
Yeah, I think I do like all of. I was just thinking this, but like I think that Phoebe's boyfriends are like I think she has the most interesting relationships. Yeah. Like she has the one guy that moves to Musk when he's like a scientist.
Oh yeah,
and they have like kind of like a really I don't know, it was a really interesting plot line that they had. He would come back.
Had a good relationship.
And, like, she really like would take it seriously and like should I?
Yes, and she had this
guy, and that was like really interesting. I don't think it's that the characters in the show don't think she's hot or like that she doesn't think she or can be hot. I think it's more just like the show doesn't present her as like a viable.
I think they don't want to present her.
Yeah, they want her to be the joke hot one, like
because
she's
Rachel has to be the hot one.
Yeah, Rachel's the hot one. Monica is too. I think they just decided that they were prettier. But Schmidt and Monica over on the fat suit.
Oh yes. So also really similar characters, which is one thing I like about New Girl is that it doesn't copy paste the Friends characters. Like they are very.
Yeah, it is more like subversive of their. Yeah, what like Friends started, they kind of like take it to the next level by like.
But we sort of talked about in the past. Monica's fat suit was more of a joke, like it was to make a fat joke, and I think at the time
suits are always pretty. What's the word? Like kind of like a trashy way to make a joke. Like I don't think they ever.
I would say, given the time period that it came out, fat jokes were probably pretty popular. I don't know a lot about the '90s, having not been alive, but
yeah, I think like the fat jokes were funnier when they would just reference it when she was an adult. Like,
well, I will say one of the fat jokes that I found really funny was the What If episode where Monica and Joey were married.
Oh yeah,
and they were just both very fat and happy. Like, I thought it was, like, funny because it's just like, oh, yeah, Monica's a chef and Joey loves food, and they would both have just, like, fucking gone for it. Also, though, crazy that Monica was a chef because I think that chefs should be a little bit chubby because they should be tasting all the food that they're making all the time.
Yeah, Never Just a Skinny Chef?
Never Trust a Skinny Chef, they don't.
Yeah, I feel like it is kind of random that she's a chef. I don't know what it really added.
No, I think, so Monica's fat suit was used a lot in Friends, I think, to make a joke. And we talked about how Schmidt's, I think initially it might have started to make jokes, or like to excuse his douchey behavior, but it moved into like a genuine, important character arc / growth development.
Yeah, it really did shed a light on like a lot of his issues that they addressed in the show, like
especially
why he was so insecure and like didn't have any friends in like college.
I would say especially his relationship with Cece. It sheds light because I think the reason why he wants to be with her initially so much and why you kind of forgive him later on is that he was like fat and like no girls ever liked him, like he was always in the friend zone, and so just like the fact that this like beautiful model kind of woman would want to be with him, I think he needs.
But he also like
needs
loves,
that for like security. Well, no, I think later on he does like he grows to love her and stuff. But initially, I think that's why he wants.
Yeah, her. No, like, I agree with you. I think it's like he's both kind of like met his ideal, like being with like this like whatever 10 out of 10 model was never in the cards for him to begin with. And not only does he have that, but it's also someone that like is his soulmate.
Yeah.
That's like, he really like achieved everything and more than what he thought he could.
And I think
and I think that like makes sense, like that character. Like I think it makes sense that little character arc where he would go from being really insecure to being like really like overcompensating, like kind of douchey and like I think that really
I think he's like body image issues, which is what they wouldn't have addressed them as in the 90s or even in the 2010s, but they both had like severe body image issues. I'd say his definitely explain his insecurity in his relationships, especially with someone who he deems like to be the most beautiful woman in the world. Which, by the way, Cece is very beautiful. I won't like argue that. I also think that like there were other women on that show who were more beautiful than her. But I think that
like
it kind of adds to, like Megan Fox. But I think it kind of adds to like how much he loves her that he does like think she could have anyone in the world. Like she could be with anyone, but she's choosing to be with him. And I think because he thinks that way also, like, because he knows that she's more than just a beautiful woman, but she's also, like, an interesting person.
Which I think
and, like,
he learns in between them just picking up.
Yeah, I think he learns it, like, when they become friends.
Yeah.
And when they, like, start dating stuff. When he realizes that she's more than that, he's like, fuck, like, I'm not gonna...
Yeah.
I'm gonna screw this up. Like, how am I gonna get someone better?
Yeah.
Which I think, like,
he
really feeds into his insecurity. He doesn't get someone. How she could have someone better is what I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think their relationship
with Monica
feeds into his insecurities a lot.
And then with Monica, it just kind of feels like it's like they try to, I think, use it to like explain why she's so controlling.
Yes.
But I also don't think that like I ever questioned why Monica was. I just thought that's kind of like it didn't need. Like, there could have been more to her. Like, I thought, like, her thing with her parents was, like, really interesting. Like, her daddy issues
okay,
what I was really interesting.
What I was going to say is that I think that Monica's relationship with her parents explains more of her as a person than her, like, body image problem. Like, her weight loss and stuff like that. Because I think her thing with her parents is that they clearly love Ross more than her.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, she's turned out much better than Ross.
Yeah.
And I kind of blame her parents for that. Because I think that her parents not showing... I think her parents showing Ross so much more love and coddling him is part of what makes Ross such a toxic person. Because, like, yes, you should love your child, and I'm not a parent, I can't, like, say necessarily, but, like, you should love your child, but you shouldn't, like, make them think that everything they do is, like, God's gift to the earth. Like, they make Ross think, like, he's
they feed
God's
into him
gift.
so much.
And Monica, they're like,
he drinks that
they're like,
Kool-Aid.
Monica,
Yes.
like, I feel like sometimes they just would be fine if Monica wasn't there anymore.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's fucked up, but I think it explains her like relationship with other people too, because I think she has a lot of insecurity, especially even in her relationship with Chandler, who she kind of like laughs at the fact that she would be in a relationship with him in earlier seasons.
Yeah, she needs to grow up too.
She's insecure in that relationship, but I think it's more to do with what her parents made her feel than.
I think, yeah, well, I think Monica always strives for perfection, probably because of these like, impossible standards that her parents made her feel like she had to reach to. And then I think when her dating Chandler was her realizing that she doesn't have to, like, live up to any standards, she can just be happy with what she wants, which is Chandler.
But I think even throughout her relationship with Chandler, she did have to learn to let go more. I think he helped her with that. Like, their communication is top tier.
Yeah.
And she's aware of his commitment phobia, and I think that's like something that she learns to be okay with a little bit.
She was always very like, I want to settle. Like, she was kind of more.
But
fast-paced,
I think
and she had to
because of her like love for him as a person, she learns to be more patient.
Yeah.
But yes, I do think that they use Schmidt and Monica in a lot of ways. Like, they do say that because they were like once fat and overweight and out of control in terms of how they ate and stuff like that. Yeah. That's why they're like A-type now. Like, they're
that is
overly
A-type.
I think like Chandler teaches Monica to be more patient, and I think Cece teaches Schmidt to be more willing to compromise and stuff like that. Like, she does help him through more of his controlling behaviors, and I think Chandler does.
Yeah.
I think they both picked partners who are very different from them, because also like Cece's very messy.
Are Cece and Schmidt or Cece and Chandler like the same? I don't know. Probably not.
They're both definitely the ones who.
They're more straight man, I think, than the rest. They're probably the least zany.
They're both definitely the ones who are.
Make comment on kind of what's going around. Maybe.
Like, they're almost bullying their friends a little bit.
Yeah.
But it comes off funny. And like, to be fair, I think and to be fair, I think that Chandler and Cece both have this air of sincerity that like makes it okay for them to be commenting on what their friends are doing, because they do genuinely care.
I think the friends' dynamics are a lot more clear cut and set in stone. Like, you know, in an episode, if like say Chandler and Phoebe appear together, you know how that interaction is going to go down. You know that Chandler's going to make like some off-color jokes, and Phoebe's going to be like too positive to really like appreciate them. Like, you know how everything's going to play out. They're very clear, and they can lean on that a lot. I think in New Girl, the relationships the characters have, like, I think their personalities are a lot more similar, which I do think makes it a little more realistic why they would be friends. like they all laugh at the same things, they all like enjoy the same activities, and I think their relationships when they have like B plots on the side of it, like the character pairings are less distinct. Yeah, less predictable.
Well, you also said
like
earlier that you think that the friendships are more organic than the New Girl ones. Like, you think it makes sense why they're friends.
I think how they became friends makes more sense in Friends than in New Girl.
I think you're right. Like, I think that New Girl definitely relies heavily on the fact that Jess lives with these guys and not that Jess is a guy's girl. Like, she's
not a guy's
girl. She's not at all. It almost, like, kind of shows you as well, like, you shouldn't have to change yourself to be friends with who you're friends with. Like, Jess never really changes herself.
That's true, yeah.
Other than for personal growth.
I think as well in New Girl, I think the characters, not even just Jess, I think a few of them, even like Schmidt to like Nick and like Nick to like, they have to like, they seem to put more effort into maintaining their friendships than New Girl, or than Friends does. Like, they have to really, like, they kind of dig, like, no, tell me, like, your emotional side. Like, tell me, like, your secrets. Like, we should have, like, a shares night. Or whatever, like, sharing night. And then, but Friends, it's very, you walk in and I don't know.
They just always are friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I think, what I would put it more as is New Girl actively tries to dig into the emotional side of the friendship.
Okay.
And I think Friends keeps it a little
That's
lighter.
Fair.
Friends has, like, I think you said it earlier, they have such clear dynamics of, like, who can hang out with who and who can interact with who.
Yeah.
And with New Girl, you do kind of feel like, for the most part, other than when Winston and Cece became friends, like, it was weird, but it also somehow made sense. But, like, all of them could interact with any of them, and it wouldn't seem strange. And when it is strange, they address it.
Yeah.
Like, they addressed that Winston and Cece's relationship was weird, and they addressed that Schmidt and Winston initially did not have a good relationship.
Yeah.
And they even addressed that, like, Coach doesn't give a shit about Jess at the start, like, when he's, like, there.
Yeah, they're a lot more honest, I think, about the dynamics. They're a lot more...
Yeah.
Whereas I think like, Friends, it's, like, it's left up to your interpretation, assuming that you're going to interpret that everything's smooth.
Yeah, like, you assume in Friends that they are all just friends. And, like, that, like, all of them could hang out with any of them, but they don't. Like...
Yeah, I think there's an episode, I think, where it's Phoebe and Rachel and Joey and Ross, and they're drawing names to decide. I forget what it was, but it was they had to pair off to go do something, maybe like seating somewhere or like going to dinner together or something. They had to like divide and conquer, and they draw names, and Rachel draws Joey and Phoebe draws Ross, and then like, okay. And it's kind of awkward, and then like, okay, no, let's switch.
Like,
switch. It's like this time.
It's like it was like really clear.
It was almost like fourth wall breaking.
I'm pretty sure it was when they, and this could be wrong, but I thought it was when they were making deals with like, if we're not married by the time we're whatever age, do you want to marry each other?
Oh yeah.
But I think that's the only time they ever addressed that those are the comfortable dynamics.
Yeah, but I think that maybe that's a bit more real. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's realistic for friend groups not to address what dynamics don't work. Like, I wouldn't necessarily address the fact that I don't hang out with, like, certain friends alone.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like that's actually a really funny bit, because, like,
but, I think
that's very much one of those awkward situations that you want to do that. Yeah. Like,
but
everyone knows you do that. But you're like, what if someone doesn't know? Like, we can't do it.
I think that the fact that New Girl does it keeps it fresh, for sure.
Yeah. It's a little more interesting. They all have, like, their own... And they work hard to achieve... Like, you see the characters working on their relationships.
Yes.
Like, friendships.
Anyways, we move on to the finales, right?
Yeah, where we argue.
You believe that...
Well, it's not even argue. It's a known fact that Friends has had a better finale.
You believe that Friends has a better finale than New Girl. Okay. Well, it's not necessarily controversial on your end.
I don't think. Well, like the way Friends. Okay. No, my argument for why it's good is gonna be 90% of the time about why it was bad. But I'm still gonna be like, no, it was still good.
New Girl finale, hot take. I think it's better than the Friends finale, and I know people hate the last season of New Girl. Like, it's.
Oh, do people hate it?
Look, even I don't love it as much as the rest of the show.
Yeah, I hate it. So
I would say that I've definitely
at least one person hates it.
I've definitely heard the argument that the New Girl last season was not necessary, and like I understand that, but I think that what I like about it, and we talked about this, is that the New Girl finale is very much like it's all of the last season, and it's like a chapter, the last chapter of the book. So it's like a big wrap up. And the Friends finale is like the last sentence of the book. Like it's the one episode, is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's not really built up to.
And so what I like about the New Girl finale is that throughout the season, they're showing like how the characters have grown into like adulthood, like from what they were to what they are now. With, you know, Schmidt and Cece are figuring out their new sort of dynamic as parents. And like Schmidt realizing that he doesn't like want to work. He's not the same like person he was when he was younger. He wants to like, be a stay-at-home dad, which I think is really like great. I think it's a good storyline to explore that a lot of TV shows don't explore stay-at-home dads as like characters.
It's very like life kind of after the end of the show almost.
And then
it's very like epilogic.
Yeah.
Epilogic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like an epilogue.
Yeah.
And then Cece is like figuring out herself as a career woman finally, like after like doing modeling and like going to school, like school for art history, basically, I think is what she did. Like, she's like, oh, actually, I know about the business and like, oh, this is what I want to do in terms of her like modeling career. And then Winston and Allie figuring out their relationship,
having a baby,
married and having a baby and like doing that sort of thing. And Nick and Jess, who are always the slowest to grow up, I think, throughout the show, finally taking that next step in their relationship and finally addressing what they want in their future in a way that like they were really scared to do. And a lot of the last season, like I think half of it is spent with Nick trying to propose to Jess and not being able to. And in the first episode, they literally like bring it Jess's ex to be like, you guys never knew what you were, like it's a mess, whatever. And like and Jess and Nick, like, first of all, initially addressing their relationship the way they normally would, and then finally talking and realizing that they've grown up a lot, which I think shows just how different their relationship is now versus what it was. And I think like showing, mostly it's about Jess being able to say goodbye to.
That's true. Yeah.
Like I think everyone else.
It kind of goes back to season 1 where it's like very Jess.
Yeah. It's like season 1. It started with Jess and it's ending with Jess figuring out how to be an adult, basically. And with the New Girl thing, New Girl, a big theme for them is that they don't want to be adults. We talked about this a long time ago, like way at the beginning. In New Girl, they're like, I want to hold on to my young adulthood, I want to hold on to my youth, blah, blah, blah. And the way that, and the loft is like, I think we've said before, it's like a dorm room. Like it's all of them sort of like in their youth and stuff. And so the fact that Nick and Jess still live there is like they're holding on to this like time in their like young adulthood before they go into that phase of your life where your family becomes important to you again, like because it's the children you're giving birth to. Like not that should be the way for everyone, but like in terms of like how life phases work, that's usually
especially in these kinds of shows where I feel like parents aren't relevant anymore. Like these
and it's kind of that transition between your parents aren't relevant to you anymore until you become the parent. Like they're becoming sort of that stage. But no, the way they move out of the loft is the prank that Winston pulls on them, telling them,
which I think is interesting. I don't know how. Like, I feel like I don't know if it like they didn't think this through, but I don't know if it's supposed to make the metaphor work in like a more interesting way.
But it kind of does, because like
they're kind of like
by the end they realize we don't have to move, but just like I've said goodbye, I've figured out how to say goodbye, and I'm ready to go forward in my life.
That's true.
And I think it's a really sweet ending. I also what I like about the New Girl finale is that they're not saying goodbye to each other. They're saying goodbye to a chapter of their life.
That's true, yeah.
Like, they all are living in Los Angeles and, like, doing their thing. And, like, they do, like, sort of the cut to the forward of, like, them with their kids.
Give you that it's like comfort of...
Yeah, it's like what I think a good comfort show should do is it gives you the comfort of, like, they'll always be friends with each other and they'll always care about each other, and maybe they
like they definitely come back for a season. Whatever.
They're not leaving each other behind. Like they want to stay friends with each other.
Yeah, they have a bit more. Yeah,
which I think is what I like about it, and it might be like unrealistic or whatever, but it's why I like the finale better. I'll be the first to admit I don't like season 7 as much as I like the other seasons. But I still think it's important. I think it was an important way for, not even just for the viewers, and also for the actors to say goodbye to the show.
That's true, yeah.
And the characters, say goodbye to the characters.
It's a nice, like, we know this is over, so let's make the most of it.
They've finally grown up, is what I feel like the 7th season is saying. Like, we're here, we're in adulthood now.
I think, like, I guess they have, well, I think we talked about how they have different perspectives on growing up, like, where New Girl, they don't want to, and Friends, they're just kind of trying to, but some days are jokes are bro, you have lies, but and they have all these, like, problems that kind of they're trying really hard, but they can't. And I think there's, like, a lot more on paper positive aspects about the Two Girl finale than there is with, like, the Friends finale. Like, for instance, Ross and Rachel getting back together. Like, Joey not really having, like, a character arc because they're doing the spin-off, which I understand it's, like, a studio interference thing. Like, he has to...
Which sucks.
It's poor Joey. Like, I just think, for me, it's, like, that last scene of Friends... It's probably, like, it's definitely, like, bias and, like, nostalgia, but, like, I think it's just so iconic. I've been trying for so long, I think, to move on, like, versus, like, New Girl, where, like, they're kind of being pushed into moving on, or, like, they kind of have to make that decision for themselves that they're ready to. I think with Friends, it's, like, they're finally all succeeding at what they've set out to do from season 1. And I think just closing that door on the apartment.
Well, that's also
super...
Like, a common thing between Friends and New Girl is they both are saying goodbye to their main apartment, like the place.
Yeah, like the setting. Yeah, like this is.
They're literally saying goodbye to the show.
I think I like Friends for it is, like, the last episode. Like, this is it. Like, you're gonna cry because they're not gonna come back.
It's a very, I would say, the Friends one is a very bittersweet ending.
Yeah, I think it's really sad.
It's way less.
Which I think works well for, like, a show that was so, like, iconically, like, funny. Like, it was so, like, and I think. I liked that it was really hurtful.
It ties into that idea that Friends was one of the first shows to have genuine, heartfult moments.
That's true.
Like, sitcoms, not
like, it was, like, way more serialized. I think it just makes it a little bit more impactful, and it's not necessarily better or worse. I just think it's, like...
Yeah.
And it might also just be, like, your experience watching the show, like, if you grew up watching New Girl.
I feel like the conclusion that you come to in the two finales is that it depends on what you want. And, like, honestly, the Friends finale is something that, like, I'll never forget it. Like, I probably cried during it when I watched it the first time.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Well, little 12, 13-year-old me watching it being like, what the fuck?
Like, I think it's just also very, like, I don't know, it's like, you're a grown-up now.
Yeah, and it's like,
and this is done.
Moving on.
Now it's time for our hot takes.
Now our hot takes.
I've been, like, biting my tongue when we've, like, touched
Okay, no, I'm really excited for hot takes. Do we want to start with, you've touched on this throughout the episode that we've been doing. Jess, you don't think is a likable character. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think they just don't. I think they do address it, like, in the episode where she addresses with, like, Nick's lawyer girlfriend, like, well, I'm a girl, I'm a school. I just don't think that it does enough to, like, forgive how fucking annoying she is. And I think, like, and, like, she works for the show, that's fine. She's really useful for the show. I think, like...
You know my arguments.
Bro, if I, like...
Well...
If I met Jess in real life, like, I would throw up. Like, I think she's so annoying, and I don't think that these boys would be friends with her. I don't see the interest that they would have in being friends with her, and, like, to the extent that they are, other than, like, Nick wanting to bang her. I think that, to me, takes me out of it a little bit, because I just think they're so different and come from such different places, and I think she's just... And she's allowed to be, she seems like a very kind person, I think. And it's not even necessarily just the quirkiness. I think it's, to me, how much she inserts herself in other people's relationships and causes a lot of her own problems that I get frustrated with.
I think
sorry, that's really hard.
No, that's fine. I just think she's so necessary as a supporting character, not as a main character. I think as a main character, super annoying, would not want her to be the main character throughout the series. I think season 1, she was a good main character to introduce everyone and to get to know everyone. And then when she takes a step back, I think she's so, like, important as a supporting character because she inserts herself in so much. Yeah. And we talked about it earlier. You wouldn't like any of these characters if you met them IRL.
Oh, yeah, we were like, if you met any TV show character in real life, I don't care how much you say, I'd have a beer with this person. You wouldn't. They would be annoying.
You don't want to know them.
You don't want to talk to someone that, like, acts like they're on a set.
No, but I think that she's so important to the show that I am willing to look at. And I also like.
I guess she can have her show.
I think I definitely can relate to Jess in a lot of ways. I definitely am a very hyper feminine person, and I have a lot of those quirky, like interests. She has like when they like sort of talk about how much yarn she owns and stuff. I'm like, I own so much yarn, and knitting is such like a passion of mine that it's like, what the fuck? Like,
I don't hate knitting.
No, I know you don't. I just mean like I can kind of relate to her like weird interests that I don't think are necessarily things that. Like, not that, like, other people don't have those interests. I think lots of people have those interests.
It's not represented, I think, as positively and as, like, naturally as it is.
Yeah, I just think that she gets a lot of hate for being quirky and weird when in reality I kind of respect her for standing by it.
Okay, yeah. She's like, I'm not trying to be quirky.
It's like, yeah, I don't think I like her as a person, but I really respect her as a person.
I think to me it's less of the quirkiness and more just the plots around, like how she
I think
is like the problem like something she did is like the problem a lot of the time.
But I feel like there would be no show without her.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I think we have to agree to disagree on her as a character.
Hot take for friends. We think poor Phoebe, but I think if
basically we think she and Ross should have hooked up at some point.
Yeah, at least hooked up. I think it would have been good for Ross to hook up with Phoebe.
I think if Ross had like a little relationship with Phoebe, his character growth would have skyrocketed.
So I think Phoebe says it as is. She's had a hard life.
She's not gonna take his shit. Like
she would call him on so much shit.
Yeah.
And I think they would kind of like challenge each other in an interesting way.
They talk about evolution, and Phoebe says she doesn't believe in evolution, and Ross is like, how the fuck can you not believe in evolution? Really comes at her. Then he gives up and says, fine, Phoebe, don't believe in evolution. And she says, really? You just gave up that easily? Like, what happened to your morals and your principles? Like, she doesn't mind. She wants people to disagree with her if they disagree with her, but she doesn't, like, she wants them to be willing to and be able to fight for their side of the argument.
I think she is as intellectual as Ross. Like, I think they're probably the two intellectuals. I think she knows, like, she can argue with him and, like, enjoys it, kind of, which I think not like an unhealthy, but like they can have like a debate.
Phoebe wouldn't let Ross disrespect her the same way I think Rachel does in an intellectual way.
Yeah,
I think Rachel lets Ross belittle her intelligence a lot, and I think
Rachel's had some shitty boyfriends and things.
Yeah, and I think that what I said earlier, Ross is literally like all the men in Rachel's life. She's used to it.
Yeah.
And I think she's so used to it that she's okay with it. Phoebe would not let it slide. She would be like, fuck no, and she would fight him. And I think that they didn't need to like end up together or be together long term, but I think she really could have helped him to see his own character flaws.
I think we just gonna say I don't think Nick is a
good love interest.
Yeah, well, not like he's not a good. I think he would be unbearable to date, and I don't know if he deserves them.
I think that your hot takes about New Girl are like the takes that everyone has in the world, where it's like, yeah, in real life that would suck.
Like,
but it's a show.
What the fuck? Like, how is anyone dating this man? He has nothing organized. He wears like a dirty ass hoodie all the time. In the later seasons, when they have to have him grow up, I think they've kept him so immature for so long that they really have to like. He just won the lottery and like got his like book published. Now he's like famous and he's like, I don't know. I think a lot of that growth was just kind of like Deus Ex Machina's.
I think
like it's just kind of came out of
I get what you mean. I think
I didn't think he actually like earned it.
Emotionally, I think he grew up a lot during season 6 with Reagan and that whole relationship.
Yeah, that's when he wrote the book. I think.
Yeah, he wrote the book when he was with Reagan. But what I would say is, I think you're right that the author book stuff sort of was handed to him. Like, it was always sort of a joke that he wanted to write.
I'm sorry, he's an idiot. Like I don't believe he wrote a bestseller on his first try writing a book that he's been trying to write.
Well, it wasn't his first try writing a book because he had Zia's for Zombie first.
Oh, fuck, sorry.
Remember when there's the episode where he has the word search midway through the book because he didn't know what to do?
Right, he doesn't read books. Like,
well, I think he does say multiple times, a good writer doesn't read.
Yeah, and he also says, I don't know how to read, I think I just memorize a lot of words.
Yeah, which I can relate to
on
so many levels.
I just don't think you can make those jokes and then still have him be this, like, brilliant, like, off. I don't know if he's, like, brilliant. He was, like, a YA novel.
To be fair, they make comments about the fact that, like, he feels like he kind of lucked into it, and honestly, that, like, he's not a brilliant author. He wrote a good book because he had, like, because he can be colorful with words, I think, and like he had like he had an interesting story to tell, and he wanted his target audience initially was like tough guys, and then tweens liked it. So like he wrote a book like that, and then
he did actually. I don't know. I just think it would have been more fulfilling if he had actually like done some internal.
But I think
he should have reached the success that Andy reaches in Parks and Recreation, where he like just wants to be a rock star and becomes a trials performer. But I think that I think Nick could have done a similar thing.
I think that Nick's success character arc professionally was when he and Schmidt got the bar. Like I think his bar.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think. Ideally, what I would have seen is Nick buy the bar and run it.
Yeah, I think it should have just been that. I don't think he should have done the book thing.
But I would have been okay if he was an author and it was like small time. Like I think it would have been fun.
Yeah, maybe like if he went to like the local like book fair or something and like signed like some kid's book.
Because like what happened was that like in season 6,
boxes of books that didn't.
Because in season 6 he tried to promote the book and like they did.
They went on like tour in like Europe. That's when they went.
But that's season 7. But in season 6 they tried to do that, and then whatever. But.
I think that like he was fucking J.K. Rowling.
I think that if they had made him more small time and he acted like he was big time, because he's like, I sold a whole 12 copies, which I think he did in one episode. It's like if you had kept that up with like him being running a bar and stuff, it would have been fine. Because I think the bar storyline was way more to do with his character growth. Because also in one of the seasons, he talks about how becoming a bartender was like an active choice he made after realizing he could be a lawyer, but he didn't want to.
Yeah, and I think that's like I think it's enough for him.
But I think he's a good.
While still like,
I think he's a good love interest for Jess.
Yeah, that's fine.
I still find him hot, but that's just me.
Yeah, I know everyone finds him hot.
That's everyone.
I think who plays him?
Jake Johnson.
Yeah, I think he's hot.
Okay, and for our final hot take, at least
we know you don't want to. We're gonna get death threats.
Maybe I
think people hate this. But we think that Joey and Rachel should have ended up together.
Chef's kiss, those two.
They were so cute. They were so cute together.
They were right for each other.
I was rooting them so hard when I was like younger watching it.
Yeah, I was 10 years old.
Rachel fucking loved Joey. I'm sorry, like they had like
cute. Well, they basically said it. We're too close friends to be like sexual with each other, and it's like I don't.
That was so made up. I was like, I'm sorry, no. That was building sexual tension for like episodes.
And I like the other thing was, I've talked about this.
Yeah, they like the universe. God says no.
Anyways,
no, they were
Rachel and Joey
meant for each other. They were both like the himbo kind of characters. They were like kind of the hot, like laid back,
hot dumb ones.
Yeah, like.
But I think the one thing is that Joey definitely respected Rachel a lot more than Ross did.
Joey was such a catch. Yeah, like he like you were saying the scene where like she was really scared because she spilled spaghetti on the carpet.
Yeah, and Joey just sort of like shows her that like it's okay to be like messy and stuff.
Yeah,
like I think that's like very.
Like Ross would have yelled at her and like grounded her, like because he's.
I think Joey and Rachel had more of an even playing field in terms of like how they looked at each other. Like I think they both looked at each other
so much. I think just like mutual, like it's so balanced.
They loved each other in a way that included respect, and I think that Ross and Rachel. Ross didn't respect Rachel in a lot of ways, and I think that that's a big issue. And I don't think it's a hot take to say that Ross and Rachel shouldn't have ended up together, but I think people hate the idea of Joey and Rachel.
I think they thought it was like joking that they're just like doing random shit.
Yeah, but it kind of worked.
I think it made sense, and I think what it had to be paired with was Ross needed to do his own thing.
Yeah,
because we discussed how like Ross definitely needed his own character arc. That wasn't just not doing anything and still getting the girl at the end.
He's an asshole, but he's like, well, I'm just an average guy, and it's like, okay, so you get the hot girl because you're normal, but like
they learn nothing. They just continue being a dick, and like, why are they rewarded? Like,
but no, what?
And like, and then Ross should have had a character arc of maybe being a parent,
good dad.
Like he could have maybe realized that I have a child and I should probably look at
I should take care of my child.
Like Ben, who's like 10 years old, and has met his dad like twice.
I think Ross needed that. Character growth. And look, if they wanted to get Ross and Rachel together, they needed to show why Ross deserved it, not why Rachel deserved it.
I think she had already planned she was taking her and her daughter were moving to Paris to start their career.
By the way, Rachel had actually like thought through her career and what could go on with Emma, and it was asking Ross like, what do you think? How do you feel? Like, they can do this with Emma, or like, do you want Emma to be around you more often? Like, she was talking to him about it, and Ross was like, fuck that. I want you to stay here with me.
Ross could have gone to France. He's a fucking professor.
Well, I think I saw a comment that was like, basically, Ross had tenure. Like, he could have taken time off to go to Paris for a year for them to... at least for them to sort out their relationship.
Yeah.
He could.
I was to I'd be like, wow, this seems like a big decision. Anyways, I got my flight to catch, so I guess I'm not making that decision. Like,
yeah. I think,
oh, this seems like a problem for
he basically got her flight ruined because he wanted to tell her he loved her.
Did he, like, chase after her?
He chased after her, and
and then she, like, showed up.
He, like, made Phoebe call and say that the plane was broken or whatever, and then she came back and said, I didn't get on the plane, like, I love you.
Joey, like, and then that could have been, I know, like, Joey couldn't have a character arc because of the spin-off show, but that aside, like, that would have worked so well, as, like, Joey also, like, grows up enough to be in, like, a stable relationship with
Joey's saying,
Rachel,
like, I want to...
and, like, fathering, basically, like, a stepdad
Joey
for a child.
even going with Rachel to Paris.
Why not? Yeah.
Because Joey didn't have a lot of ties.
He could have gotten, like, a gig in, like, some, like, foreign, like, French film.
Well, Joey didn't have a lot of ties to New York, other than the fact that he wanted to be an actor.
I think
maybe some...
But, like,
whatever,
like, he's
like,
an adult.
He's an adult,
yeah.
He doesn't... What I mean is, like, he doesn't have any reason why he can't go for
that would have worked so much better.
And, like, he could have gone
like,
with
Ross
Rachel.
kind of just ending with, like, Ben, and, like...
And Ross, being with Ben, and also, like, being, like,
maybe reconciling with his, like, ex-wife and their girlfriend.
And, like, a friendship, kind of way.
Yeah, maybe, like, they have, like, a nice night together,
Yeah.
actually. Him accepting as well, like, Joey and Rachel getting together would be him, like, letting go of Rachel finally and, like, moving on and realizing she deserves better.
I think him accepting that Rachel isn't the one.
Has her own, like, thoughts
and that, like, she deserves better than what he gave her.
Yeah.
Would have been great.
Like, I think Joey being so different from him, too, could have made him realize that they were just never going to work.
I think the only satisfying friend ending was Monica and Chandler's.
Yeah.
Monica and Chandler's was definitely the most, like, fulfilling.
Yeah, it made the most...
They had been working
like,
really... They had been trying for a long time to have a kid. They finally started their family. They got 2 kids. They moved into the suburbs. Like, and they do, like, talk about how, like, they want to stay in touch with, like, Joey and, like, their friends. And, like, they want that to be a thing. And... I think that Rachel deserved just so much better.
I think also that leads into, like, kind of our, like, main theme of the, like, how Friends was really pushing for, like the wrap-up with Monica and Chandler, how, you know, they finally got what they want. Like, they were working for, like, 1 or 2 seasons trying to, like, conceive a child. Mm-hmm. And, like, really trying, like, going to fertility tests and, like, getting surrogacy. Whereas compared to New Girl, where Cece's realizing, oh shit, like, she's being kind of pressured into, like, adulthood by being told that she has to have children by a certain age. Because she... Yeah, which is it's such, like, a stark, which is, like, I think,
contrast
cool.
to... Yeah. Yeah, and Cece, like, it's what's burned her, like, whole... Cece, basically agreed to an arranged marriage because...
Yeah.
She thought that... But,
like, she was being kind of pressured into it.
Well, because what we also said was that, the writers spent a lot of time showing us why Ross and Rachel weren't good for each other.
Well, you said somebody's like, How I Met Your Mother. They're like...
Yeah. It's like, they spent so many seasons showing us why Ross and Rachel weren't good together, and How I Met Your Mother, they spent so many seasons showing us why Robin and Ted didn't work. Yeah. That, like, it didn't make sense for them to keep their initial ending plan. Whether it was what you started with.
Yeah.
Shows don't
give it up.
Like just let go.
Like, I could have respected them kind of jumping the shark with Joey and Rachel if they had ended it like that. Mm-hmm. Like, just at least have some respect for your own ideas.
Definitely. And I think
that also makes it like that feel so irrelevant. Like, that makes it feel dumber because they didn't even end up together.
Yeah, right? It's like why was that even an arc? It makes it feel like
if it had ended, I would have respected it more.
It's like it feels like such a stupid arc because nothing came of it. Like nothing at all. The writers in Friends showed why Ross and Rachel shouldn't be together. Alternatively, I think the writers in New Girl showed why Nick and Jess should be together throughout the seasons when they weren't together.
I think.
Yeah. And while it was an annoying friendship to watch sometimes because it was clear that they were in love with each other, they continued to show why they worked. Like, as opposed to Ross and Rachel, where it's like they continued to show why Rachel was so much better than him.
Ross was just always shitty. He always treated his girlfriend shitty. Like, not one girl walked away with a positive experience dating Ross.
Freaking remember Emily? Poor girl.
Poor Emily.
He ruined her life, and they always talked about how she was controlling and evil. It's like Ross,
because she said not to see Rachel, who he was obviously still like.
Who he said her name at their wedding, and like obviously.
I'm sorry, like she was supposed to not be a little upset about that.
And later, when they finally talked, and Ross said, "Look, this won't work if you don't trust me," Emily admitted, "You're right, and I don't trust you, so we can't do this."
Which is mature, I think.
Which I thought was the mature thing, and they made her seem like the villain. They're like, "I can't believe she wouldn't work on it," but it's like,
well, that's like every time there's an outside character, like they always have to perceive them as the villain, even though like no, like they're in the right.
You know what? Sometimes the friends are the bad guys. I think I think Joey's character arc would have been completed if he and Rachel got together. And I think Ross needed that character arc of like, he needed personal growth. He didn't need a romantic partner. I think Ross's big thing is that he was obsessed with having a stable romantic partner, and he didn't need it.
He needed therapy.
He needed therapy. He needed therapy, and he needed to learn how to be a good parent, though. Like,
hashtag, where's your child, Ross?
Ross, where's Ben?
Just like real.
Or Emma, even. Like, Emma
at least is a baby. You can kind of ignore baby. Sucks for Rachel, but like... if there's another parent there.
To be fair, I think Friends did a bad job. Like, none of them were good parents. But, like, that aside, I think that Ross's big arc, like, he should have been more involved in his son's life and, like, later his daughter's life, obviously. But, like,
that would have gone a long way, at least, to redeem him as, like, someone likable.
From the start.
Like, oh, he's a good dad.
It's like, he's not a good boyfriend and he's not a good partner, but at least he's a good parent. But no, he's not a good parent.
At least, like, I feel like they should have had him, like, bring up the kid. Like, I understand, like, wanting to give a child that much screen.
I get that, like, TV shows, they're not going to be great parents, but I think they could have done better, or just not made Ross a dad.
Just, like, when you're out of ideas and you start doing, like, random shit, like, they were doing, like, maybe, like, reflect on where you can improve.
Well, also, I think they did more of an emotional character arc between Ross and his monkey than Ross and his son. Like, remember when Ross...
Oh, yeah, his service, Silent Ross, you have a son. He flies, like, San Francisco or San Diego to, like, see the monkeys. It's like, your son hasn't seen you in a year and a half.
They use his son as an excuse for Ross not to be able to leave New York, and that's basically exclusively what it is. His real love interest throughout that show was Marcel. the only
Marcel
thing in the show that he could put above himself.
In the monkey pen.
I think that it's not even so much, like, obviously I did enjoy Joey and Rachel as a couple, but it's not even so much that they had to be together. It's that Ross and Rachel got together when he didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
And look, he made her happy for some reason, and so for some reason that I don't understand. And I do think that Rachel deserved whatever she wanted. Yeah. Like, by the end of the show, I think she had grown enough to deserve the things that she wanted to get. But I think it's sad because what she wanted was to give up her career and her life for Ross.
That she had worked the entire series.
To become...
From episode 1 where she was a barista and, like...
Yeah, I think that Rachel and Joey were very cute because of their just, like, love for each other that was so genuine and sweet. And it was kind of like...
It has such, like, a natural chemistry with each other, too. Like, you understood... Like, I could see them living together 50 years from now. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It was kind of like
and they would have been equally having as much fun.
I think you can liken it a little to Monica and Chandler in the sense that it was a super slow burn. And, like, it was just, like, friends who realized that they loved each other.
And it made sense. And I think it also subverted, like, people thought maybe, like, Joey and Phoebe would get together because they're two quirky ones. But it, like... Yeah. It works better with Rachel, I think.
It does. I don't think...
I think Phoebe would have been bored.
Joey and Phoebe wouldn't have worked together because I think that...
Phoebe's too smart.
Phoebe's too smart for Joey.
Sorry, not, like, smart, but, like, intellectual.
Phoebe, I think, liked her relationship with Joey because... Well, not because, but I think in Phoebe's relationship with Joey, she definitely was able to manipulate him a lot more, and I don't think... Yeah. And it's not that I think Rachel couldn't do that, it's that I don't think she'd ever wanted to do that, or, like...
Rachel's
would do that.
A fair bit more easygoing, I think.
She's a bit more of the sweet, just like feelings.
Like, she's happy that Joey's just there paying attention to her.
Yeah. Well, Rachel is like
she's a Taurus,
super emotional. Like, I think Rachel's whole character thing is that she is like she's from the heart, like everything that
special.
She does.
Yeah.
And so Joey treats her like she's special and like she's amazing, and Ross treats her like she's special, but for all the wrong reasons. He's like, you're special because you're beautiful. And Joey treats her like she's special because he genuinely loves her as a person.
Yeah, and I think it means more because they were friends for so long and he wasn't just, like, pining after her like an object.
Well, like...
Well, I think about that sums it up.
Yeah, I think that's our take.
Do we have hot takes? I don't know. Let us know.
Maybe our takes weren't so hot. I feel like some of them were. our not so hot takes.
I hope we painted a good picture
of the shows and our opinions.
Mostly our opinions.
Our opinions that are fact.
Like, I don't think we described the show. You did a good job. I did, like...
Well, I think we described episodes of the show very well.
Yeah. We provided context when needed. The rest of it, I don't know, watch the show. I don't know why you listen to this if you didn't watch the show.
If you haven't seen New Girl and Friends, honestly, you probably shouldn't be listening to this or watching this. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the lighting slowly getting more and more fucked as it became like fucking pitch black outside.
Yeah, next week we might have a better setup. Might be a bit different, maybe worse. Maybe it'll be worse setup.
Maybe, yes, maybe.
We like decline on speed.
Maybe we'll just like keep getting shittier just to see.
See how long it goes.
Okay, I guess. Later, kids.
I think
we're drunk enough.